Greetings and salutations, it's Ashlee Tayla here. Why the fuck have I said that? I've never said that in my life. That's not an intro I do. But hi, greetings and salutations. Welcome to a reading vlog for Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm fine, it's fine. So technically in Australian time zone, Sunrise on the Reaping came out like digitally. Last night. It came out at like 10 p.m. and did I consider buying it on my Kindle and starting reading it immediately? Yes, but then I was like, no, I have a pre-order at like a local bookstore. Don't buy the book twice, Ashley, because I prefer reading physical copies. So like as soon as I got the physical copy, I would have swapped over anyway. So I was like, no, Ashley, don't do that. But I'm dying. Turns out it's now like 1 p.m. the next day. My pre-order only like just became available. So now I'm just like eagerly waiting in anticipation because I know that I can have it. I just have to wait. But I'm really impatient about this. I've been waiting long enough. I did my waiting. 12 years of it. And I was a bit sorry for referencing Harry Potter. I have a lot of energy. I need to read this fucking book. I'm going crazy. I've waited my whole life for this. No one watched the fucking, the Quell short film, fan film. It wasn't a short film, it was like 50 minutes. Fan film on YouTube though. No one watched that more than 10-year-old Ashley. This was for me. I deserve this. I don't know what's going on with me. I'm losing my mind a bit. I'm losing my mind! I wanted to clap. Everyone, I have an announcement. You know that one TikTok sound from that one Wicked trailer? Copy has been acquired. Now that it's in my hands, I'm like, I can't believe this is a real thing, and I can't believe that this is a thing that I'm about to read. There's something so crazy about it, and like, not to fucking welcome you to another entry of Ashley getting emotional and making a big fucking emotional deal out of something that's not a big deal and she doesn't have to get emotional over. There's something really special about having, like, The Hunger Games especially was this trilogy that I loved, was a huge reason why I think I'm such a big reader today. Like, The Hunger Games was the first YA series I ever read. I read it when I was 9, which is too young, but it was such a hugely influential novel, like series of novels in my taste in books. And honestly, I think being that young, and although a lot of the political commentary did go over my head, but being exposed to the ideas of a revolution and a tyrannical government when I was so young, I think influenced me politically in a way that I'm very grateful for at a very young age. And it was just always something that it was so influential to me, and I hyperfixated on it intensely. I went to the midnight premieres of every movie, and I dressed up as Prim with my sister, who was Katniss for the first one. We got our nails and hair done beforehand. We went like all out, and again, I was 10. So I had merch. I still own like a bunch of Mockingjay pins and necklaces and bracelets and everything with the Mockingjay symbol on them. I was so obsessed with it, but it was always something that I figured was like a closed story. I wasn't ever going to revisit the world of Panem once I finished that trilogy, and especially once those films were finished being released. And obviously we had Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and that was a return years after Mockingjay had come out. But this feels different in a way because this is returning to like an actually familiar character and a character that I care about. I was cautious, I'll be honest, about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes when it came out, because at the time, you know, it was released in 2020, and at the time I didn't really want to read a story about the backstory of a, you know, tyrannical president. I didn't want to read that. And then it was obviously because Suzanne Collins is a genius, incredibly well done, and a very, very interesting character study, and it was phenomenal. But I was skeptical about it, and so I didn't have the same like level of just pure excitement about it that I do with this one, because Haymitch is a character that I love, and the older I get, the more I appreciate his character in his entirety. Hearing about his games and that Court of Quell was also just something as fans we've wanted for so long. So to like have in my hands a novel about that, like I can't fully believe that it's real, and I'm so grateful for it. And listen, say what you will, but being a fangirl never lets me down. It never lets me down. Also, I have coffee now, but specifically Australians will know Gloria Jeans. They have chillers. They're espresso chillers. There's so much sugar but so much espresso in these, and I'm addicted to them. They're quite pricey. I have them on special occasions. This felt like a special occasion. Let's read though. The dedications. This is going to be incredible. Yes, I am on the first sentence. Did we know Haymitch's birthday was on the Reaping? I haven't reread the original trilogy, and it was when I was going through my really traumatic breakup. That would have been 2021, like mid 2021. So it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute. Did we know Haymitch's birthday was on the Reaping? I feel like I would have remembered that if we knew that. That makes me so sad that like the Reaping for the 74th game, when we see Katniss and Peter and he's just so drunk and stumbling around on stage and he's like the laughingstock of the Capitol. Thinking of that being his birthday, it makes me so sad. Immediate pain. He has a 10-year-old brother, Sid. That's gonna hurt me. Oh boy, that's gonna hurt me bad. I'm hoping to finish my work before the ceremony so I can devote the afternoon to the two things I love best. Wasting time and being with my girl, Lenore Dove. What if I throw myself into the ocean, Suzanne Collins? What then? What then? Okay, I'm on page 6 now and I have a lot to say. Okay, first of all, immediately driving home the parallels between Haymitch and Katniss, which I really appreciate. Haymitch is such an important part of why Haymitch kind of bonds with her so intensely, as he sees himself in her so much. So him immediately going out, and although what he's doing is different, but going out and partaking in illegal activities and creating something to sell at the hub, waking up in the morning to go do that. I think that's so smart. I also think it's so heartbreaking to have his work be creating alcohol, which will ultimately be this thing in his life that, how do you even describe alcoholism? Like this source of constant angst and turmoil. Obviously, like he uses the alcohol to drown out everything else, but his alcoholism does also impact his life negatively. Having him be working and explicitly say that he doesn't drink as well, it hurts me. But also his girlfriend's Covey, Lenore Dove, but she's Covey, which means the Covey is still around in District 12 at this point, which is really interesting. Something I find interesting, and I don't know if this was even true in every case, but the attendants on the train helping out are decidedly not AVOXers, and I don't know if they generally are, or if maybe District 12 just at their point in time had AVOXers but other districts had just staff. I don't know, but it seemed like if AVOXers are kind of the standard for wait staff, that hasn't always been the case and is not the case here. In 50 years we've only had one victor, and that was a long time ago. A girl who no one seems to know anything about. Back then, barely anyone in 12 had a television, so the games were mostly hearsay. I've never seen her in the clips of the old shows, but then those early efforts are rarely featured, as they are said to be badly filmed and lacking in spectacle. My parents weren't born yet, and even Mormor couldn't tell me about the girl. I brought our Victor out with Lenore Dove a few times, but she never wanted to discuss her, which makes sense because Lenore's Covey. But we got a Lucy mention. I was hoping we would get reference to Lucy Gray and the fact that her win must have, by this point in time, kind of been scrubbed from existence, but I was still hoping we'd get a mention, and I'm glad we did. Speaking of Lucy Gray, she is kind of one of the dream cosplays I want to do. I was talking in my Discord the other day and people were like, you should do a Hunger Games cosplay, and I was like, I would love to, because I do love doing book cosplays, but I'm definitively not a Katniss nor a Joanna. The Hunger Games protagonists that I relate to are Peter and Lucy Gray, but because obviously Lucy Gray isn't written to explicitly be Latina, obviously Rachel Zegler just is, so I know quite a few people cosplay her who are white. The Covey as a group seem a little, I don't know. I don't know if me as the whitest person alive, my mum is English, if that would be appropriate for me to cosplay her, but I'm just talking out loud. I don't know. What are the other people's thoughts? Have a discussion with me about it, because I'd really appreciate it, genuinely. It's very interesting that Haymitch kind of, hair and mouth. It's kind of interesting that Haymitch kind of immediately clocks that Plutarch is, legitimately helping them and has a kind front, but everything that he's doing is, as Plutarch says, mutually beneficial. Rearranging things in a way that make the Capitol happier, it gives them a better show, but it also does actively help their odds in terms of getting sponsors and helping save their lives. So it's this really interesting kind of duality that I think Haymitch must really learn from his own games, how to unfortunately learn to play the game even when you don't agree with the Capitol and you don't want to be their plaything, because he's so good at advising Katniss and Peter how, in ways to make the Capitol like them and have the Capitol in the palm of their hand, even when Katniss hates it, which again, we're having the parallels so early on, because Haymitch hates being this pawn for the Capitol's entertainment the same way that Katniss does, and the same way that Peter does. Peter just deals with it in a smarter, less autistic way, Katniss autistic truthers rise up. I just think that's just really interesting. I don't know. My commentary so far is like not anything, but I'm yapping. Alright, full transparency and me oversharing, because when do I not in reading vlogs? I just found out the results of my granddad's biopsy, and he has stage 4 cancer that has already spread. So I'm quite upset and I don't really know how to process it. I'm feeling a little dissociative. So if the vibes are a little weird, that's probably why. But I'm gonna ignore everything and keep reading. I've decided I really love Macely. I'm gonna say Macely. Macely sounds more real, but the way it's spelled, I feel like it's Macely. I don't know, I'm bad with pronunciations. I feel like I can't speak English, and English is the only language I know, so that says a lot. I've decided I love her for the ways that she stood up to. My brain is saying Drizella. That's Cinderella's stepsister. I'm really bad with names if people don't know. Drusilla. I'm going with Drusilla. The way that she stood up to her and read her to filth and then slapped her back. Drusilla slapped her and she went right back. Got her like a lashing, but good for her. And the way in which like Drusilla tried to then hurt her feelings, being like, well, you're gonna die. And she was like, yep, I am. So why would I care what you have to say about me? The really poignant thing is the way that Drusilla was like, okay, I hope you do win then. You have no idea what's coming for you. It's so haunting and so true. And Haymitch is a perfect example about that. So that being something Haymitch overheard. Ow! I'm gonna say it. I feel like I won't hate Wyatt either. I don't love that he's a part of like betting on the Hunger Games at all. But when he's grown up with that, and I mean, I'm not trying to make presumptions about his family, but if you're really strapped for any kind of funds, and you know, like most people although most people in District 12 are also like struggling to feed themselves and aren't betting on other people's lives in a gross way, but if that's a way for their family to make an income and it's out of desperation rather than them actually enjoying betting on kids' lives, then like, I don't know, because of the circumstances of living in District 12 during this time, I don't necessarily want to pass immediate judgment on him as well. Like, he's a child who's just born into his family who take part in that, so I don't want to be too judgmental of that. So I think I'm going to like him too. I think it's very interesting that we have the Peacekeeper propaganda banners up in the Capitol as well, because that also drives home the kind of idea from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes that there are quite a few people in the Capitol who are uncomfortable with the games, and often they have to try and reconvince and use heavy propaganda against the Capitol citizens themselves to continue this idea that the games are this beneficial thing that help protect them and prevent the war from happening again. Especially when at this point in time they're so far out, we're like, yeah, the fucking tributes weren't even alive at all when the war was going on, so that kind of punishment, like the tribute parents weren't, that kind of punishment truly isn't like applicable really anymore. So I think that's really interesting. I also think it's just very, very fascinating to see, and I think this is all very, very well thought out by Suzanne Collins, of just like the progression of the games themselves and the budgets for them, and in particular in the way that the tributes are treated and what their living situations are like. You know, obviously this is a huge step up from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's 40 years later, but I was expecting it to be much closer to what we see in the 74th games with the tribute center and the way that the tributes are kind of carted off to get prepped by their, you know, teams for the opening parade before they see other tributes, versus here they're just kind of, it's a fucking old academy gymnasium, so it's the Capitol's uni gymnasium that they haven't used. They're all sitting in there and they're all eyeing each other up. They're able to see all the other tributes long before they get in touch with their stylist. It sounds like this is the first year potentially they have stylists, or it's the first year that District 12 has stylists. Like, I don't know, it sounded like, oh, you get stylists now. I imagine like the opening parade was already a thing at this point in time. That wasn't a thing with Lucy Gray and her games, but I imagine that already would have been established by now. Ignore literally everything I said before. I completely misread a sentence, evidently, because District 12 has had stylists before. I think it's really interesting that the university students are now the prep team. The university students are still being graded on their involvement with the games. I imagine there's some kind of cosmetology students, but I think it's really fascinating to see that the university students explicitly, not even the academy, but like university students are still involved in the games and they're getting graded on it 40 years on still. And the descriptions of the tributes seeing each other before the opening ceremony got drastically worse by the fact that they all have to endure that weird and horrible shower together. But like, I cannot imagine being someone between the ages of 12 and 18, a time when I like did not want to see myself in the shower alone, having to then be so vulnerably exposed in that scenario with the people who are trying to kill me in a week. It's hell in there. It's torture. I know that I was anticipating a sad and unfair and unfortunate death for Luella, but I thought it would be in the arena. She was 13. The older I get, the more how young the characters in these novels I think impacts me, because I first read them when I was 9. So Katniss was years older than me. Rue was older than me. The older I get, the more I'm like, no, these are children. That hits so much more impactfully. I'm in a little bit of a state of shock about it. I wasn't expecting it to happen here. I think Haymitch is right about it maybe being a blessing. In fact, one of the last things she said was like, you and me till the end. It's just really fucking sad. Hot take. I'm basically giving her a necklace from back home, and Haymitch saying she likes flowers has got me. Because they are, sure, they're fighting each other, but they are all kids missing the same home. Haymitch is running off with her body, and I know it's not going to make a difference. This is not the blood they want to paint their posters with is a fucking phenomenal line. Something steals inside me and I think, you are on a high horse, mister, and someday someone will knock you off it straight into your grave. I dismount the chariot and lay Luella down, taking a step back so Snow can't pretend he doesn't see her broken little bird body. Then I gesture to him and begin to applaud, giving credit where credit is due. These books are really fucking good. Boy, that was mean, even by my standards, Maisie says to me. You can't choose your parents. You could reject their business, I point out. I couldn't, says Maisie. I was going to spend the rest of my life behind that candy counter, no matter how much I hated it. And I'm guessing you'd have been wearing mine as overalls to your grave. None of us had any choices. Exactly fucking right. That is my point. Living in this economy with these circumstances, you don't. You just simply don't. Also, Snow looking at his little flicker thingy. I've forgotten what it's called. Flint. It's because it reminds him of Lucy Gray. I mean, also he's probably clocking that that's probably something that Haymitch can use, but I don't think it'll be taken from him. It's also something that I'm sure reminds him of Lucy Gray. Wyrus being one of the mentors I love, because again, it's already driving home, like, it makes so much sense that the group in Catching Fire who create this rebellious group, it makes so much sense how all of them are connected. It makes sense how they all know each other and how they would all know to approach each other to be on the same team and know that they have these same ideals. I mean, you kind of get the implication that all of the tributes do meet and know each other a lot in the years following the games, but to specifically have the connection between Haymitch and Plutarch and Haymitch and Wyrus now, which would then obviously extend to Beatty, is so smart. And also, like, Wyrus, by the time we meet her in Catching Fire, she's pretty, she's not necessarily like with it. She's very, very intelligent and kind and gentle from memory, but she's not communicating in the easiest ways. Like TikTok. Yes, Wyrus, TikTok. So to get to know her more, especially when she's so young, like she was the previous year's Victor. She's still a kid at this point in time. That I think that's just so cool. This book is even more connected to like both Ballad and the original trilogy than I thought it was going to be, but I'm really liking that. Every connection seems very intentional and thought out. It's not like fan servicey where it's like, here's a character for no reason. It feels very, very intentional, and so I really, really appreciate that and I really enjoy that. Suzanne Collins, I will never bet against you. Oh my god, the other mentor is Mags. I'm gonna cry. The other mentor is Mags. See, but I'm right about Plutarch and thinking he's a very fascinating character where he is in his journey right now. I cannot get a read on him for the life of me, because in that little bit in the training station after Panache sucker punched Haymitch for no reason, rude. First of all, rude. There's a reason that they bring in the fucking rules that you're not allowed to harm or maim another tribute. Haymitch seeing Katniss doing it, getting war flashbacks. Shouldn't say war flashbacks. Getting flashbacks. When they realize that they're armed and that they could take out the peacekeepers if they tried. If the tributes actually fought back, there are multiple instances where they could overpower the other group, or as Haymitch says, at least do some damage. And Plutarch goes, you could have. Why didn't you? He's such an interesting character. Why do you submit to it all? He presses. Because you have the guns, Rondina says flatly. Is it really about the weapons, though? I grant you they're an advantage. On the other hand, when you consider the sheer difference in numbers, district to capital, Plutarch muses. Yes, we far outnumber the peacekeepers in 12. I think about the weapons we could lay our hands on. Pickaxes, knives, possibly some explosives. But in the face of automatic rifles, aerial bombings, gases, and the capital's menagerie of mutts, I don't think we submit, I say. It's implied. You accept the capital's conditions. Because we don't want to end up dead, I snap. Do you really not see that? No, I do. I see the hangings and the shootings and the starvation and the Hunger Games, I do, Plutarch says. And yet I still don't think the fear they inspire justifies this arrangement we've all entered into. Do you? We stare at him. He's not taunting or mocking us, he's genuinely asking. Why do you agree to it? Why do I? For that matter, why have people always agreed to it? When we don't respond, he shrugs. Well, something to think about. Plutarch fucking already wants a revolution. He was always going to be part of it. Kind of slow. Thanks, King. So Beatty is here, but I had truly 3 seconds to be like, it's Beatty! Before the reality of the situation came crashing down on me, because Ampert is his son. Ampert, the 12-year-old tribute, is Beatty's son. Beatty is having to mentor his 12-year-old son in the Hunger Games. I know it was said when Katniss, I don't know if it's after she's been raped, and I can't remember at what point it is. It might have even just been when she was talking to Gail about having kids, right, in that first chapter, but there is definitely a part in the Hunger Games, All Catching Fire, somewhere it's said that, like, Katniss acknowledges that the Capitol likes to specifically reap the kids of victors, and that there's been accusations about that being rigged, but like, what is anyone gonna fucking do about it? It's the Capitol. But that sucks so bad. And no doubt you're wondering why I'm here, Haymitch. Beatty removes his glasses and polishes them on his shirt. It's because I'm being punished for coming up with a plan to sabotage the Capitol's communication system. I'm too valuable to kill, but my son is disposable. So they've been doing that all along. You pose a threat, the Capitol, or Snow specifically, will kill your family. I will kill your friends and family to remind you of my love, da 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 da. Haymitch asking, so if it's a machine, it can be broken, right? I have vague memory of how Haymitch won his games. So him working that out right here, right now, really freaking cool. It's just so impressive to me that Suzanne Collins probably had like vague ideas of backstories for each character, and I'm sure she had like a pretty concise idea of like Haymitch's games and how he won them, and we only got glimpses of that because we only got what we needed to know. But her ability to take what was probably like solid ideas, but to then create and weave this entire well-structured narrative out of that is legitimately so impressive. I think writing prequels is genuinely very, very tricky and more difficult than writing a sequel to something, because to write a good prequel you have to really factor in different levels of knowledge and how to make an engaging story when audiences know, you know, the end result. Like, we know Haymitch is going to win. We're not fearing for Haymitch's life during this novel. We know he lives. Like, so to be able to tell an engaging story that gives context to a lot of the vague pieces of knowledge we do have, and also lays so much important groundwork and adds so much lore to the trilogy, while also being legitimately just very engaging on its own. That is such a fucking impressive feat. Suzanne Collins is just, I legitimately cannot think of a better YA author. She is just phenomenal at what she does. I really love that even though Beatty is having to experience this awful thing with his son, and granted, after his son actually does get killed, it might necessarily be worse, but he understands that his son is there because of him, and he blames himself and he blames Snow and the Capitol rather than the other tributes. He's literally just helped Haymitch and smuggled him something to to help him out, and that speaks a lot to, like, you know, Beatty obviously working with Haymitch later down the line, but Beatty is old enough and wise enough to understand that what Haymitch was saying to the District 6 tributes, like, they are in this together. The fact that his son got reaped does not mean that every tribute is an enemy that he should be, you know, trying to hurt. He's trying to help everyone. Maybe not the tribute, maybe not the career, sorry. If someone's, like, itching to give your son a gruesome murder, maybe you're not happy about that. But most of the tributes really don't want to hurt each other, and it's not their fault that they got reaped. And it's nice that Beatty very clearly was still helping Haymitch despite that. The ways in which I just cannot understand Plutarch's motivations, or, like, really where he's coming from. Also, what the fuck is his whole family home? How involved is this man with President Snow if he's like, yes, Haymitch, come to my mansion. This is where Snow will presumably throw you. I don't know, Snow hasn't actually shown up yet. Odd. He knows poetry, though. He's a poetry stan. Insanely and deeply funny to me that President Snow, Coriolanus Snow, is in his 50s. He is dying, and he's still bitter about his breakup with Lucy Gray. He's down tremendously bad. He's still so pissed off about it. I love a bitch who haunts the narrative. But I know a thing or two about your dove. Like what? Like, she's delightful to look at. Swishes around in bright colours and sings like a mockingjay. You love her, and oh, how she seems to love you. Except sometimes you wonder because her plans don't include you at all. Believe me, romantically speaking, you're dodging a bullet with these games. Coriolanus, baby girl, you gotta get over it. He's 50 something, it just said. He was, what, 18 in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? It is time to move on. And that's rich coming from me. Okay, many things to talk about. The fact that Snow willingly, I guess, gave himself food poisoning. I believe that was food poisoning. To have, like, a believable excuse about how the parade master died. On brand. Shocking that this man was coughing up blood for years before his death. Wow. The fake Luella, this child they've seemingly drugged to shreds, brainwashed her probably with, like, Tracker venom, like, fully hijacked this girl, I'd presume, and also given cosmetic surgery, it sounds like, to resemble Luella, that they're just going to send to the slaughter. I think it would look not even that bad on the Capitol if you just said there was some fucking infighting, and then you can paint a target on Haymitch's back or something. Like, say that Haymitch, something happened in the training sessions, whatever. It makes sense why Snow hates Haymitch so intensely too, because he's fully like, I'm gonna kill you. You're not surviving these games. And everything that he does is so hinged on Haymitch getting killed, and that also really does lend, like, obviously it's not his fault, but why Haymitch would feel such a responsibility about all of his family members and everyone he loves, I assume, are going to get murdered later, and he's going to blame himself so intensely for that because that wouldn't have happened if he died in the arena like he was supposed to, quote unquote, unquote. It's also very interesting to see just the extent of the rebellious desires and acts happening long before Katniss comes around. Like, she truly kind of is the final piece in this puzzle that leads to the rebellion. Especially as I am enjoying seeing all of the, like, specific connections between characters. It is feeling a little bit like the portal scene in Endgame, because I feel like everyone we meet is like, I know that guy. But again, I do think it's all woven together very, very well, and I'm enjoying it. Like, it's a little bit it's getting a little bit fan servicey. I'm that far into the book, like maybe like a third, and I feel like every character we're seeing, like every mentor we've met are all mentors that Katniss knows personally and stuff, and I'm like, we could have maybe not had all of them, but I like the way that they're all specifically intertwined into the story as well. And again, I think writing prequels is really hard because it is very difficult to walk that line of people want to see and hear about characters they know, how much of that is the correct amount. But it doesn't bother me because every character that we see, it, like, we're seeing them for a purpose, and it adds something to their character in the future in the trilogy. And I think it does elevate the story that we're hearing here as well. So it doesn't bother me too much, but I feel like that's going to be a critique that a lot of people have of this one. I feel like quite a few people called Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes too fanservice-y, which I didn't agree with that at all. So I imagine this will be a complaint with this one. But you know what? It's it's fun and it's done well, so I'm entitled to think it's fun. We get to see Haymitch very quick on his feet, coming up with different strategies and different ways to kind of play a character for the game makers. You know, he's before his private training session, he's thinking to himself, how can I spin this? How can I create some kind of narrative where I can score fine without like pissing anyone off anymore? He's not going for that political element. He's trying to go under the radar so he can pull off the plan. And he's very quick on his feet with coming up with something that is feasible. It's not enough. They give him a 1. He's very quick-witted with it. And I think that that's also really interesting to see that he was like that for his own games. And obviously he's like that with Katniss and Peters. And I'm sure was like that with some other tributes that he mentored. Yeah, it reaches a point where they're all just coming through and you're watching them all get killed and you've lost everyone you love, and you reach a point where all you can do is drown your sorrows. And I do understand that. Also interesting that in order to make an example out of Haymitch, the game makers, or more accurately Snow, give him a 1, trying to use that to make an example out of him. Obviously Haymitch uses skill and understandings of the arena and a lot of different tactics to basically become Victor. I don't think he even has the intention of becoming Victor necessarily, how this is going at least. But I imagine Haymitch also has people who root for him. He has sponsors. I think he's going to have audience favor. We saw that even when he was acting out at the parade, when he was spitting on the audience. They were like, yeah, love your attitude, woo, king. And I think that it's really interesting that they initially give him the 1 to make an example. It fails, so when they need to make an example out of Katniss, they give her an 11. They go the full opposite route and they try to just put a target on her back, which also doesn't work. I mean, it does work, but she outsmarts people still. Interesting. That's cool. We officially have Caesar Flickerman in the interviews. I'm so excited to see him. Much as I liked Lucky, like, the spark that Caesar has, I'm so glad that I assumed he would be hosting the interviews by this point, but excited that he absolutely is. Excited to see my guy. You know how I said it was starting to feel a little bit like the portal scene in Endgame? So one of the prep team mentions having like a great sister who's gonna help. The sister's Effie. I'm happy to see her, but at least the trinkets aren't mean, just clueless, which makes for a big improvement. That's, you know, obviously what we always knew about Effie. She was very clueless and she bought so deeply into the capital propaganda, even her being like, no, it's the games to honor all the lives lost in the war. And she's not even necessarily saying like the people in the capital lost their lives. She's just like, people in the nation, people in Panem lost their lives, and we must honor them with this, with making the Hunger Games as lavish as possible. Like, she really believes that. That doesn't start to crumble apart for her until she very, very like closely is attached to the tributes and the people that are hurt. I don't know how I feel or if I like Effie and Haymitch kind of like having any kind of history prior to working together in District 12 though. I feel like the idea that Haymitch was already a victor and Effie showed up and was just this thorn in his side is this fun idea that I don't know if I want to let go of. Listen, I'm going to be a real jerk in my interview. It's something my team worked up, but I will never hurt you, okay? Or any of the newcomers. That's a promise. We know that, says Welly, eyes full of trust. Too much trust. I need to distance myself from them for the good of everybody. That is the thing about alliances and something that I would take into consideration. Because, like, granted, if I went in the Hunger Games, and I've had many dreams about this, not dreams, more so nightmares, I'm dying in all of them, but I have no hope. Like, none at all. And I know that, I'm fine with that. And I wouldn't want that to be different, because, like, one, I'm weak as shit, my immune system's shit, the elements are getting me if no one else does. I can't hold my own in a fight, but I also, like, legitimately don't think I could kill another person. I just don't think I could. So the idea of having an ally, like, one, I'm going to be a burden on them, but two, like, if you ally with someone and then it comes down to a cat is scratching, if it comes down to, you know, us being some of the last players and then you have to break that allyship, like, I just couldn't do it. I simply don't have the capacity to do it. I know that that's why Katniss didn't initially have allies, and then she had Rue, but, like, Oh, I couldn't. I am absolutely freaking loving the descriptions of different games and when different elements were introduced to the games, especially like in the fallout from 10. The first Quarter Quell is apparently where we had, and I don't know how much of this we knew already. There might be pieces of this that we already knew and I've forgotten about, but the fact that the first Quarter Quell is when you first had the tribute parade. It was the first time an arena was built especially for that. I can't remember if we knew that the first Quarter Quell they had the districts picked the tributes themselves, but that is the worst Quarter Quell theming, I think, personally. None of the three are good, but I think that's the worst one. Evil snake-loving lady from Ballad, Professor Gale, starts with a G. The fact that she played such a hand in that and officially coined the term "may the odds be ever in your favor." Like, I just love getting those other pieces of information about the development of these games and how, as Haymitch says, they evolved from this kind of pure punishment that everyone thought was distasteful into this form of pure entertainment that created so many of its own industries. Even the districts have their own little gambling betting systems for the games. I just find that so fascinating. Something that felt very true about Caesar in games like in the 74th and 75th when we saw him was that despite him, you know, being good at his job and playing up everything for the capital crowds, it also did seem like he was legitimately trying to help out each tribute. He was legitimately trying to sell them. It's very clear that even though he's very engaging and sitting with the crowds, that at this point he's not above punching down at the tributes. He's not necessarily trying to make all of them seem like the best option possible. Fuck Panache, but he was probably really hurt his odds, which is something that I don't feel like Caesar, when we meet him in the trilogy, would do. He's, with all of the careers, with all of the smaller districts, he's legitimately trying to play up all of them and trying to get their best foot forward. Sometimes she cries because things are so beautiful and we keep messing them up. Because the world doesn't have to be so terrifying. That's on people, not the world. She's me. I'm very grateful that Haymitch and Lenore Dove got an actual goodbye, and what I assume, despite the fact that he's going to become Victor, will probably be the last time they speak, because I think she's probably going to have been killed by the time Haymitch gets back home. Lovely. I genuinely didn't think Plutarch was going to be as involved as he was, though, which, again, I mean, I always could never quite get a grasp on him and his level of involvement in Catching Fire and Mockingjay 2. I think he's just, as I've said in this video, like, such a fascinating character for that. So it's really interesting to think that even at this age, like, he is so involved with, you know, different forms of rebellion. The way that he calls Haymitch out and is like, I know you don't trust me, which is fair, but, which is kind of the same thing he says to Katniss. And it's almost like they're really priming Haymitch to be like the lead of the revolution, and he gives it a good fucking go, but obviously that spark that Katniss has as the Mockingjay, Haymitch just, it all crushes him too much instead. But also, I think what they do to Haymitch is far, not that it's worse, Katniss goes through awful things, but because of Peter as well, Katniss is able to go home with Peter, and Prim and her mother are still there. They're being threatened, Gale's getting whipped, but they're all alive. Also sad, but interesting that we're having this commentary, and it's meant to sound ridiculous, of Effie being like, I have to start touching myself up and maintaining myself now, when she's a couple years out of the university. Current beauty standards are telling girls to start getting Botox at like 18. Like, that's just happening now. So preventative Botox or whatever it's called, no judgment to anyone who has it, but the fact that that's a current beauty standard and that's something that's meant to seem outlandish in here. Great. Alrighty, I think I am going to finish reading for the evening there because it is getting sort of late. I've been reading on and off all afternoon, but it's also taking me a minute to read because I keep yapping every 3 sentences. But it's getting late and I want to shower, which means I'm going to wash off my makeup, and I would like to keep reading, but I don't like my face without makeup, so I don't want that on camera. But I'm also right before the game, so it feels like a good cutoff point, so I'm over halfway through now. I love reading quickly because I love devouring a book, and when I love a book I can't think about anything else and I fully consume it. But then this is a book I've waited years, like a long time from announcement to now, more so like before it was a real thing. It was something that I wanted to read for like a decade of my life, if not more, literally more. I'm going to have consumed it in less than 48 hours. There is that, and sometimes I'm like, is that smart? Who's to say? That's not for me to decide. Good morning, kids. It is day 2 of reading Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm about to get right into it. I've put on makeup. I also did my hair and it looks garbage, so don't worry about that. I keep like trying to do like 50s, 60s rollers in my hair because I'm obsessed with like 50s and 60s fashion. Again, every like 3 years, I get really into like vintage fashion aesthetics and hair and makeup and all of that. And I'm having my moment with that again, so I keep being like, I want the big 50s and 60s curls. What is that? But I keep forgetting like my hair is short now, and so it doesn't really work with my length of hair because they're kind of made to do longer hair. It's okay. I like the short hair, but I am wishing I had long hair again. I cut it off because it was dead. Also, shout out to my homemade Sabrina Carpenter merch, and we even did a little SD. This was before she had like the official like camaraderie shirt on her merch team, but I thought it was funny because I was like, the girls who get it. Anyway, I feel like my feelings gonna get hurt with this book, so I'm procrastinating. Also, I would just like to update everyone. Say hi, Percy. Say hi, Percy. I would like everyone to know that hi, he wants to say hi. I have also, whoa, sorry, he jumped. I've gotten myself caffeine. I've gotten myself a coffee, so we're so prepped. And all the tears, I'm gonna cry. Actually, I like how my makeup looks today. Rip to the hair, but I like how my makeup looks today. I'm going to fuck it up. I know I'm gonna have to redo my makeup. I'm trying to read. He's making it a little, not impossible, but just a little difficult. He's trying to read with me. I just wanted to say, the reusable trackers, I hope they've gotten rid of that. I was going to say by the 74th, but as soon as possible. That seems really unhygienic. They're shooting them into their forearms already at this point. It's not like they're just attaching them to them. So then they remove them from the dead or one person's alive bodies and put them in another person? That doesn't seem hygienic at all. Once something's like been inside a person, I don't think you can sterilize it to the point of it being fine to put in another person. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, isn't that why, like, when you get like any kind of injection, they're like all disposable needle, because like once it's been inside you, it's sterilization. You go sterilize it. I don't know, I have questions. The idea of Effie Trinket like helping Haymitch with this trinket, not only promising him that she will try her best to get his token to Lenore after he passes, even though Effie, you know, I'm sure that would be very, very difficult for her to do. I believe that she would try and keep her word, but also her being like, keep a positive attitude right before he like ascends in the tube is so funny to me. I'm not gonna lie. It just feels, I guess, like Haymitch and Effie have been working together for years at the point that we then meet them again in the Hunger Games, but it's like, at what point do you think they reunited? And Effie was like, Haymitch, hey buddy, and Haymitch was like, just not the same person, which is very sad to think about. 20 people in the bloodbath. I assume the bloodbath is still happening. Like, they set the cannons off with 18, and then another 2 happened, but like Haymitch hasn't even really stopped yet, so I assume like technically still the blood. I know the first cannons go off like at the end of the bloodbath, but like 2 other cannons went off like 10 minutes later. I'm counting them as bloodbath kills. The fact that 20 cannons went off with the bloodbath, and yet there are still more tributes left than almost like any other year after the bloodbath. It's just horrifying. There's just something about the death numbers that have really like put into perspective how terrifying it is to have double the amount of people trying to kill you. And obviously like they're not technically because of the alliances that have been formed, but like that's so scary. Also, the idea of it being like this picturesque, beautiful arena, I hate. It's so I hate it. Yucky. If all of the bunnies and cute creatures turn out to be like muds that are going to kill them, I'm going to be so mad and upset. Okay, so the stream is poisoned, so I assume other like food sources that are really readily available that Haymitch was like making fun of are also going to be like not safe to eat and consume. I also assume the pills that he got aren't as useless as he thinks, and that it'll actually like help with being poisoned, potentially. Maybe not like save your life, but if you have like a little bit of something bad, might help. Yay. Oh, am I yapping too much? You gonna abandon me? But also, now that the bunnies just drank the poison on its own, lucky that Haymitch saw that and didn't try to drink the fresh water, but he can just eat. Can he eat the bunny? Will that poison him? Like, he doesn't have to worry about killing it now. It's dead. But wait, I don't know how poison works. That might hurt him. I don't know. I'm not very smart. The way in which I read Haymitch drinking from the stream 30 seconds before I read that it was poisoned, and I forgot that he drank from the stream. My lack of brain cells concerns me sometimes. Also, nothing new has necessarily happened about this, but Haymitch heard like a young girl screaming when he was running from the cornucopia. And that was the right thing to do. But I just find I haven't really talked about it because I don't even know how to articulate it. The Luella and then the Lulu story arc is so chilling and legitimately evil. Not only obviously what happened to Luella is tragic, but for them to then brainwash and torture and parade around this little girl that they have starved for whatever reason, to have her not be able to even conceive of her own identity and just send her like a lamb to the slaughter. It's, I think, maybe the most horrific thing in any of these books. And I don't really have like any interesting commentary about it. I just find it so, like, it makes my blood curl. Yeah, maybe the most fucked up thing that Suzanne Collins has written, in my humble opinion. I wonder how Wyatt died and immediately feel certain he was protecting Lulu the way no one had ever protected him. Why the fuck would you say that? Fury rises up in me at the thought of Wyatt's sacrifice and how the Capitol has pitted us tributes against one another in this poisonous beauty of an arena. The games must end. Here. Now, every death reinforces the importance of the arena plot succeeding. Knowing that Haymitch feels so strongly about this, and obviously he watches the games continue and has to mentor pair after pair after pair of children who died. There's not another victor for District 12 until Katniss and Peter. So fucking sad. I like the idea, and I think what Suzanne Collins is really expertly showing in this book in particular, but also in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes too, is like the idea, and I think this is so important right now, that a revolution is not built overnight. It can take years and generations for seeds of plans to come to fruition, but it's so tragic for the people who have to. And I think it's meant to be a comforting thing right now that she's communicating to audiences. How upsetting for the people who begin the fights or who take those risks to have to not see them come to fruition, or not see them come to fruition for a long time in Haymitch's case. I know it's day one and Haymitch is trying to be nice to Lulu, who has just found him, but the fact that they're eating so much food so quickly, worries me. Ration, my friends, please. I understand having an apple each. They're also having an egg each. I think the apple was enough for breakfast. I'm gonna be so for real. My brain is just like, ration. All the fucking food around you is poisonous. You can't eat, like, you know, like, at least in like Katniss's game, she's like, oh, I know what plants I can eat that are safe. They don't have that option. All the fucking plants are gonna kill them. All the fruit, all of that. Ration like crazy because you don't know when you're next going to get food from the cornucopia. That's stressing me out. I knew that Lulu was going to die. Like, she wasn't making it through the game, and quite quickly, because of her state. The fact that she was killed by basically trying to embrace one of the only things she recognized from her home and her former life as herself is so heartbreaking. And Haymitch talking about how he doesn't know what they will even do with her body because she was being disguised as Luella, but they already have a body to send back to 12 for her. So where does this child who is alive and has had a family and who is still a person, where does she go? Where is she taken home? It's just genuinely deeply tragic. And it's interesting that Haymitch explicitly tries to rebel against the Capitol and the games and Snow by not immediately letting the Capitol have access to Lulu's body in the same way that he did with Luella, in the same way that Katniss does with Rue. Not that you even necessarily need it. Obviously, that act of rebellion sparked something in District 11 that started real repercussions, but it adds more weight to why Katniss doing that, even though she's just a 16-year-old kid grieving for this child who reminds her of her sister and wanting to send her out peacefully. It makes sense why that would set off all of the revolution alarm bells for Snow and why he would react so drastically and so harshly to that act from Katniss. Listen, glad he's giving Ampit food. I love that little kid. My heart goes out to him. Obviously, he doesn't survive either, I guess, because otherwise we likely would have had Beatty talk about him. And like it or not, I just don't really know where this book is going, because like we know Haymitch is the victor, but does he succeed at blowing things up in the arena? How do all the other tributes die? Is it some massive cover-up? How does the force field come into play? Because isn't that how Haymitch won his game? Like, I just have questions. They're still eating a lot of food though, which makes me really anxious. Again, like, obviously Mags is more free with her sponsors than Haymitch was for Katniss and Peter, at least initially, once he was a little bit more generous. You can't just assume and rely on sponsor food. Sir, I know you're not like planning on being around for that many days, but you're stressing me out with the food. Ambit's death was fucking awful. He was a kid. It's just awful. And like obviously Haymitch wanted to keep his promise. He couldn't. It happened when he was down enacting the plan. And the plan succeeded. It didn't go as well as they wanted. Like, the arena is still functioning, but it's damaged. They succeeded in damaging it. The idea of these things being programmed specifically only for Ambit and literally tearing him away piece by piece in what I imagine would have been horrifically painful until nothing was left except his bones. Awful. Awful. I will say the idea of a full volcano in the arena, like, just seems so unfair. All of the game makers like having natural disasters of any kind always seems even more unfair than anything else. The mutts are unfair too, but like the idea of a volcano, like that's gonna just wipe out everything in its path, and it's just like wrong place, wrong time. You can't outrun that. Unfair. Give people something they can potentially outrun at least. Like me being like, this thing the game makers are doing in the Hunger Games feels kind of mean-spirited, but like it does feel mean-spirited. That's too much. It's also very interesting and something that speaks a lot to, you know, how many victors of the Hunger Games were like nice people who don't agree with the games. Not everyone is a career who's grown up with the brainwashing of like, this is how you bring pride to your district, child. She's very impressionable. Let me just give you propaganda. Like, a lot of them go into the arena not wanting to inflict harm on people, but when it comes down to it and you have people actively coming at you with a sword, sometimes your instincts just take over, and if you have a weapon in your hand, instinctively you're going to use it because human brains want to live. And that is something that the game makers rely on, of like even the kindest, most passive people, while being attacked, are probably going to try to defend themselves. Whether or not they put up a good fight is dependent on the person, but that's just like human nature to instinctively try to fight back. And so, you know, these are Haymitch's first kills, and they both happened instantly. I mean, like, the other career girl isn't dead yet, but I'm assuming she's going to die from the wounds that he inflicted. But, like, both of them only happened because he was unprepared to enter this tussle with the careers. And instinctively, he had weapons in his hands, he kind of swung them, you know? It's how the games still exist, with victors not all being horrible careers, because the game makers rely on that human nature aspect of just like wanting to survive. Gross! Another interesting subversion of expectations in this is Maisley taking out Panache pretty easily. Like, Haymitch was a little bit fucked in that encounter, but we are still probably pretty far from the end of the games. There's 10 tributes left, not that many considering there was 48 going in, but like, you know, we're not down to the bottom 3 and Panache is out. He's dead, and Haymitch didn't have to be the one to kill him. It wasn't some brutal fight between the two that Haymitch just barely survived. I mean, Haymitch got a few cuts, but like, he's not even the one who killed him. I just think that's interesting and a little subversion of expectations. I can fucking predict that Maisley and Haymitch are probably going to be the last 2 left alive, and this is going to fucking destroy my heart. I have a vague memory of how I think Haymitch won his games from a vague description, but I'm scared that I'm misremembering, so I don't even want to like say it. But from memory, he didn't mean to kill the other component. He threw that axe at the force field and it bounced off. And I know like there only being 2 careers left is technically a good thing because they're the like toughest competitors, but also once they're gone, it's only the newcomers left, and I think that's worse because they're all your allies, they're all people you swore to protect. So at that point, what do? You all try and help each other while game makers just throw endless means of torture and like the most horrific deaths at you. That doesn't sound good either. Mags is a sweetheart for sending the soup. That District 12 eats when people pass. That's very sweet. I do fear that the emphasis on the Katniss plant being around so much when the other newcomers were killed by the porcupine in this scene, which also takes them down from 10 to 7, which is a significant jump. This porcupine killed 3 of them. Just the emphasis on the Katniss, I'm like, okay, Suzanne Collins, we get it. Katniss in spirit, the plant at least was always there. Lucy Gray talked about it, and it's there with Haymitch right now. We see you, we see you. One of us has to be the worst victor in history. Tear up their scripts, tear down their celebrations, set fire to the victor's village. Refuse to play their game. Make sure they don't use our blood to paint their posters. Exactly. We'll paint our own posters. And I know just where we can get the paint. And he tried. Pretty much fucking a bunch of the victors tried that. At least in this point in time, like, the Capitals hold on the nation and their propaganda and their own strength is just too much to combat, you know, for them to completely tear it down. The efforts that they make here pay off eventually, but just not for a long time. I fear once again my brain wasn't working there, saying there's 5 that died that day and 5 left. So I'm stupid once again. Them promising to be siblings is making me spiral out of control. Why would Suzanne Collins write something so inherently hurtful? Why would she do that? She used to say, if I was afraid, it's okay, Macely. Nothing they can take from you was ever worth keeping. I know that song. Lenore Dove sings it. It's a song? Macely smiles. Well, her guy's full of surprises. Mention of the best song ever, specifically Boot Stompin' version. Mention of the best song ever. It makes sense that Macely and the District 4 girl, whose name I've forgotten, were like pretty quickly killed after they murdered Game Makers, which I'm sure they didn't air, but I thought she was going to make it to the end. I know the nature of these books. Like, I know every time, like, don't get attached to other tributes, because the nature of the whole scenario is they are going to die. I know the victor, don't get attached to anyone else, but I really loved her. And her going out still in an act of defiance, but thankfully not alone. It's very, very sad. I really, really, really loved the moment of Silka sitting at the base of the tree crying and Haymitch sending some chocolate down to her and her eating it and not necessarily addressing it, but genuinely in that moment, all of them are alive, all of them are having this moment of shared trauma, and like Haymitch acknowledges that no matter what, there's still kids who have too many people to grieve, all of them. Even though they're the last 3 left, it's this uniting moment between all of them. Silka doesn't take it as a moment to try and attack. She knows they're there. It doesn't form an alliance either, but it's this moment of unity where they all can acknowledge the terrible fucking position they're in, and I think that that's really beautiful. I take back everything I said about Silka. I know that she's trying to go home and she is also a scared kid who is just trying to get home. There was no reason to decapitate that child. The defenseless child. She was barely alive. She was dying of starvation. It would have been very easy to take her out in a merciful way, but to decapitate her is like fucked up evil shit. And now I feel awful because I'm rooting for Haymitch to kill her, which I know is wrong, but I am. Fuck it. Okay, so I was right in remembering that like the ending of the games was the axe being thrown from the force field back at them. I thought it was Haymitch accidentally hitting an ally, but no, I was wrong. It was an enemy and having it bounce back on them, which as soon as I read it I was like, oh yeah. Again, not to condone the violence between these kids, but like deserved. Haymitch clawing out her eye with a knife, deserved. Haymitch's last move being trying to still blow up the arena. It's very interesting, all the parallels to Catching Fire in this one. I'm eating that up. Okay, interesting to save Haymitch, and the means of torture for him is to literally just put him in self-isolation while he deals with this PTSD. I would literally rather you like waterboard me. Snow playing a clip of Lucy Gray feels very pointed, specifically because it's sooner than later that you'll be alone, but who will you turn to tomorrow, I wonder. It's the song she sang about the reaping, talking about her own death. Playing that specific clip feels very pointed, and I worry that it's something about Lenore Dove. The fact that Mags and Wyrus have clearly been tortured in some way right now, even though neither of them directly actually had any hand in this specific act of Haymitch is like, yes, they probably knew about it realistically, but like Plutarch and Beatty are the only two who directly helped him. Obviously there are like other insider game makers, blah blah blah, that must have come into play, but the fact that they tortured them so severely is so sad. And I just wonder, we might find out in a second after this interview, I don't have much left, I wonder if this is when Mags potentially goes mute, because I feel like when we see her in Catching Fire she is mute at that point, and I wonder if this is where Wirus potentially loses her, not like grasp on reality, but she was so, you know, she was always a little bit like wired and different because of her insanely high intellect, but I wonder if this is where she kind of more so falls into the psyche that we see in Catching Fire. I think it's very, very pointed and very intentional that we haven't included message of how footage of political acts, I guess, in like warfare or things equivalent to warfare can be edited and an entirely different narrative can be fed to an audience, and if the audience doesn't think critically enough about it, that can just be propaganda that then gets taken as truth. I think that's a very pointed little thing that Suzanne has put in this one. Haymitch being put into a bird cage and like fed and pampered in front of everyone at the congratulation whatever after party thing. Can't say I'm surprised, but Jesus fucking Christ. And the way that he's so determined to like be this perfect puppet for the Capitol now so that they don't hurt his friends and family, even though like it's gonna be too late. It's going to be too late. I know that. You can be the perfect puppet for the Capitol and that doesn't make them treat you any better. Look at Finnick, and if you aren't the perfect puppet for them, look at Joanna. Like, there's no winning at all. It's just horrible. And them putting the coffins and the bodies near him on the train, making him ride home with them, which I don't think is a thing because Katniss and Peter didn't do that. So whether or not that was the norm at this point, it certainly stopped being it, but like I doubt it was the norm even at that point. We didn't see the train home with Lucy Gray, but I doubt she was going home with the District 12 boy. I forgot his name. I was expecting them to already have been killed, but for Haymitch to come back, for them to have timed it so Haymitch gets home while it's too late for him to do anything, but knowing that they're still being burned at that, that's more evil than I thought it was going to be. They had hold of each. I knew it was coming, but fuck you, Susan Collins. Oh my god. I am living proof that the Capitol always wins. I tried to keep that sun from rising on another reaping day. I tried to change things, and now everybody's dead. You don't want me. And I don't want him. I don't want help from anybody in the Capitol ever again. I could never trust them. We do want you. You shook up the Capitol both figuratively and literally with that earthquake. You are capable of imagining a different future. And maybe it won't be realized today, maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe it will take generations. We're all part of a continuum. Does that make it pointless? That exactly is what I want everyone's takeaway from this novel to be. Haymitch is just sent into the alcoholism after like first having, you know, like the sleep syrup and then falling into alcoholism after that because he just cannot live with the atrocities that his life has seen, and he's just had all hope taken from him. Pain. All I know is pain. I'm like 3 sentences into the epilogue and I'm crying. This is gonna kill me. This is gonna kill me. I fulfilled my promise about the reaping, or at least lent a hand, but she says I can't come to her yet. I have to look after my family. I first saw the girl at the hump when she was just a baby. The doc was so proud of her, he toted her around everywhere. After he died in that mine explosion, she started coming alone, trading the odd squirrel or rabbit. Tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids then, reminding me for all the world of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. I didn't want to let them in, her and Peter, but the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable, not if they have ever known love. That's what Lenore Duff says anyway. Suzanne Collins! I know one thing though. The Capitol could never take Lenore Dove from me again. They never really did in the first place. Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping, and she is the most precious thing I've ever known. Oh my god! Well, I've finished the book! I don't know what to do with myself now. I've waited basically a lifetime for that book. What do I have to live for now? I'm trying to stop crying just while I film an outro so then I can go and have like a big cry. Yeah, recommend. If you were wondering if I liked the book, I did. Thank you so much for watching and coming along on this emotional journey. I make videos about various nerdy shit. If you want to tag along and see any more of those, please subscribe. It does help me a lot if people like and subscribe videos. I know that's gross to say, but it does help. If you want to follow me on social media, they'll be linked below. Also, ways to support me: Patreon, passes, Etsy store. They're all linked below if anyone is interested. Special thank you to my patrons, and especially those who are one with the Force, and Ashlee's favourite goblins, of course, always. I love you, and I will see you very soon. Mwah.